The next part of the game that I'm going to code is my space invading robot. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my robot, and obviously that robot is gigantic. You could definitely invade space. So what we're going to do to make the game a little more challenging is we are going to set their size down, and I believe if you follow exactly what I'm doing, 40% seems to work pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and reset that, and that gives me a nice little invader here. And I'm going to put him up in the top corner. Again, you're going to want to make sure you're not touching any of the edges around him, because we are going to use some touching edge commands. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to program him to basically bounce back and forth in the X direction. And as we hit the edge of the screen, we're going to drop some and come back. So we're going to basically be bouncing back and forth, okay, and changing as we go. So one of the first things we're going to do is we are going to use cloning again. So I am going to hide the original, and I'm going to grab show, because that's going to be one of my first things that we do as we start from a clone. And we will show, and we will use, I believe it's repeat until. And then we are going to put in our movement, which is just move 10 steps. You'll see why we use that in a second, because again, we sometimes want it to be going in a positive X direction, and we sometimes want it to be going in a negative X direction. So we're going to go back and forth. So we use that there. And then we are going to put an if then in to sense if we are touching the edge. And if we are, then we want to move in the Y direction. We want to change Y. And this is where, if you're using different characters than me, you might try different things. I put mine at -25. If you don't like the way that looks, you can change that. You can adjust it. If you want more passes back and forth, then make a smaller number. If you want it to drop like rows, like the entire height of the item, you're going to need a bigger number. Mine's going to overlap slightly. Okay. And the other thing you're going to need is this on edge bounce. Okay. And then what we are going to do is we are going to repeat this until, and again, we're going to go into our operators. Something is less than something else. Negative 180. Again, we may need to change this, because if I remember right, I'm going to actually go ahead and change it to -150. If we do 180, 180 is the very bottom edge. So the tail of my object hits the edge first, and it starts to bounce again. And that's where you have problems. So I believe it's somewhere in the 150 range. Again, this is a number you will probably need to adjust. I'm going to go to motion, and I'm going to grab the Y position. So repeat until the Y position is less than -150. And it's going to move 10 steps. When touching the edge, do this. So right now I don't have anything creating a clone. So I'm going to just put it on there once, so I can see what happens. And this is the clone. Now, this is where I forgot I believe it's under looks. No, it's under motion. My left, right. So he was flipping upside down. So I'm going to put this right at the beginning, so that as I have the robot bounce back and forth, it drops and looks like the bad guys in Space Invaders. Now, if this is all my game was going to be, again, it's going to be pretty boring. So I'm going to take this clone off here, and I'm going to grab a repeat with a set number of times. Okay, this is a really cool trick because what this does is it means I can control how many bad guys does it make. Later on with this game, we're going to add some leveling. So that's where one of the things you can do to make levels more difficult is add more bad guys. So we have something we can mess with here. So we want to create a clone of myself. Now, the problem is if I don't make it wait, all of the clones will be overlapping. It'll literally be 10 copies all stacked together. So I've got to give it some sort of a wait. And again, you can make this, you can adjust this as you want. You can adjust this based on level. You can adjust this a lot. So I'm going to just go ahead and call it half a second. And what'll happen is, as we go, half a second puts about that much space in between. And it'll keep happening until there are 10 of them bouncing back and forth. And I'm going to let them go ahead and come all the way to the bottom. As you can see, they're touching me, which should end the game. And what I didn't do is after that repeat, I needed to delete the clones because that's where they just all stacked up. So that is the motion of the robot. So just to click play on the game as we have it now. So let me start it, stop it, start it again. Stop it, start it again. Okay. Well, something doesn't appear to be working, so I'm going to mess with this and come back in my next video and double check that everything moves like it should. And once it does, start programming in the collisions I need to make the game function. I wanted to come back and show the problem that I found, because at the end of the last video clip, I was trying to test the game and I had an issue. And what I had done is this delete the clone was one step above where it should have been. So it was repeating this until it happened. So this happened, it wasn't touching the edge, and it was deleting the clone. And all of this was happening so fast that you couldn't see it. So that's why we were just not seeing them. So by moving this to where it's supposed to be, which is at the very bottom of the stack, that's where this delete the clone is supposed to be. So right now, as you can see, I get my clones coming. I can move my rocket ship. I can push the space bar. The lasers disappear. Right now, none of the collisions work, so obviously I'm not blasting any of these robots, as well as when they start to touch me, I don't disappear. And as they reach the bottom, they kind of look like they get sucked off into some weird vacuum of space, and the game just kind of stops. I mean, I can still move, I can still shoot stuff, but now I'm just littering the cosmos with laser noise. So that's truly the end of this video. And our next step is to program all the collisions that we want to make our game actually work as a game.